You're listening to the Real Estate Radio Hour, the show that brings you unfiltered stories and insight from the Twin Cities real estate world with your hosts, Chris Rooney, broker at RE/MAX Preferred, and Andy Presky, leader of the Preferred Home Team at RE/MAX Advantage Plus.
Watch this. I'm going to go this way now. I'm going to really switch it up. All right, Andrew.
Gotta get my headphones on.
Andrew.
Let's do it.
Come on, baby. All right. So lots of multiple offers happening again.
Sure.
We're going to give people some hints, some helpful hints to be able to get their offer accepted and win, even though I've lost a few lately. So sometimes you just can't beat price. You know, at some point people just say, hey, that's what I want. You just have to be able to craft your offer in other ways. So if I don't really have, even if I have the dollars, there's other things that I might want to do. Let's talk about earnest money.
Yep.
I think that one is, I don't know, more harder to do for most people.
Yeah.
When I say earnest money, that's upfront money that you pay in consideration for them accepting their offer. It goes in the listing, the trust account of the listing broker,
Okay.
and it sits there until closing. And it gets it's down payment and closing costs. You get credited for that. But one thing that we've been doing is making our earnest money non-refundable right from the beginning. So your client has to feel comfortable that that they're going to qualify and they're not going to lose their job. But I think that gives like the one we just did, and we ended up losing. But the theory is that their house was vacant. And it's like, hey, we'll close in 30 days or we'll close in 90 days. So possession's another one, or closing date's another one. But to give you the sense of security, because we're only going 5% down, and we're only going 5% down because we weren't able to sell our house in time, and we didn't want it to be contingent. So if we did it non-contingent, they'd put down 30%.
Yeah.
But we didn't know if we could sell it. So we wanted to give them the assurance that, let's just say that something fell apart. At least you got 2 months of, house payments made for you, and you can just resell it at that time. So just kind of give them that comfort. So that's one. Talk about closing dates and stuff like that, and why you'd want to be flexible on that.
Well, first of all, I'd preface all of this by saying that there's and I don't do a ton of buying, but I do a ton of in my world I do a ton of selling. And so for me, like
listing agent.
Yeah. So when an agent calls me and says, hey, Andy, we're preparing to write an offer on your property. What does your client prefer for a closing date? What, possession time? Is there anything that they would like to see on this offer? And so then I, as a listing agent, am, allowed to tell them exactly what a perfect offer would look like for us.
As long as your client is okay with that.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't they be?
Right. We're looking at this price or better. We're looking at these kind of dates. But what's interesting is that, when you get into multiple offers, so that's where the agents have to get creative. And so what creativity means for a listing agent like me means now I have to be creative with how I explain this to my client, or shouldn't say creative. I have to now navigate through an offer that's not, simple. It's a lot of times it does add complexities to it. So then there's a lot of moving other parts. So I actually make spreadsheets. I do this. So I have right in there everything from price to closing date to whatever. And then I say, what's most important to you? Click it. It takes that one to the top. What's second most important to you? Price. Click it. Takes that one to the top. So all of a sudden my software that I do will actually, well, it's not software. It's just an Excel sheet I made up, but it actually helps us pick statistically the best closing date, the best offer price, the best, whatever. And so what I've learned is, like, when we were, you're just talking about having a customer with only 5% down to be non-contingent. I just got burned on that, where I was like, and totally, they were in a situation where exact same situation, coming in from New York City, their house was not sold yet. They were ready to buy on our house, and the whole thing blew up at the last second. I'm always scared of, and I know this is wrong, but I guess I've been, in a position to be, my price points are usually I'm minimum 10%, 20% is normal, sometimes 50%, even cash. Right. So I see a lot of that. And so when I see an offer come in that's 3.5 or 5, then I have to look at the customer who's buying the house. Why are they buying it with that kind of money? I dive deep, into why would they want
that
to do
really
this.
should be the job of the buyer's agent, to be able to give you that, so you don't have to worry about that.
There are agents. Chris, I know you know this. I'll sit there and they'll call me and they'll send me a text going, "Why haven't you responded to my offer?" I go, "What offer?"
Yeah.
I go, we're working with another offer right now. Well, we sent an offer 2 days ago.
It's
And I go,
spam. Yeah.
yeah, it's in my spam bucket. It's not my job to make sure you delivered your product that you put together. It's your job as an agent to make sure that the other party receives the offer, to the point of where, I think that's where, growing up with the old school, like you and I did, and I say old school, meaning back when there wasn't so much technology, we had to physically deliver those offers, or we would have to fax them, but I hated faxing. So what I would do is I would literally take my offer, I'd call the agent and say, "Hey, I'm dropping it off at your office. When can you present it?"
Right.
There were other agents that were even older than me at that time that would say, "When can I present it to your client?"
Totally.
And
I
so,
used to do that.
yeah. And, and there's some of these guys, I still remember the last guy that asked me to do that, wonderful agent, Jeff Martineau. Yep. Good guy.
Yeah.
And I had one in Plymouth listed, and he comes in and he's like, all hot to trot. And he goes, "I want to present to your client at their house." And I said, "Okay, let me ask my clients if they're okay with it." And they go, "Well, we don't want him to come in our house. He'll probably just try to sell us something." And I go, "Okay, so are you telling me that you do not want him to present the offer? You would like me to present it for you?" They go, "Yes." So I go out, and then he'll go, "I'll literally be sitting in the driveway." And this guy, I'm not kidding you, wrote the offer. He made sure that I knew the highlights of the offer, where he wanted me to punch, that this is why this is a good offer. And then he says to me, he goes, "I'll be sitting in the driveway." He sat on his car door like this,
Like waiting for you to get done.
staring at the window, making
That's
sure I
awesome.
presented it like he was in. And actually, if you know Jeff, he's a super nice guy. But at the time, I was a little, I don't know, say younger, but I was younger, probably mid-career. And so to me, that was a little intimidating, right?
yeah.
That he came in that strong and was that pushing. And so, I, as a listing agent, again, was in a position of where I'm like, I almost didn't want to take his offer because I didn't like the way he was treating me. And I said, if he's going to act like this now, how's he going to act through the rest of the process?
Right.
We ended up working with him, turned out great. But at the point, so that's where I think there's the strong, and then there's the really weak, almost like a horrible excuse for an agent.
Yeah.
And I say that from a place of respect. Like, I hope they get better.
Yeah.
And there are so many of them that are just like, they don't even explain the purchase agreement to their client. They send it over for digital signatures. The people don't even know what they signed.
Things are missing.
Things are missing. Blanks are. This is the other one that drives me crazy. In that scenario, I'll receive an offer and they'll say, "Well, we left those blanks empty so you could fill them in." I go, "You understand what you're doing, right?" And they go, "Well, what do you mean?" I go, "You're forcing me to give you a counter. We're looking for your best offer.
Yeah.
I'm not looking to create a counter offer. I want you to give me your best offer or whatever." Right.
Yeah.
And so some people think they're
talk about that. That's a good point. That if you do that, what I would require, so let's just say that was the offer that I wanted, I would say, okay, fill out the rest and get it to us, because I'm not signing anything or leaving anything. I'm not signing it until it's all signed on your side.
Yeah.
And then we can get it and we'll get it back to you.
Present with me a complete offer.
Yeah.
And I go, the thing is that what a lot of these people don't understand is they're like, "Well, that part doesn't really affect our purchase agreement." I go, but by putting a dash in the line, it acknowledges that you and your client have talked about that item and that you are filling it with a dash.
Yeah.
At least I know that you've explained your purchase agreement to your client.
Right.
And then a lot of times the bell will ring with these agents and go, "Oh, I thought you were just trying to be difficult." And I'm like, I want to make sure your client understands what they're buying.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, when I present it to my client, I don't want them to get excited about an offer that's, no offense, but a half-ass offer that's half filled out and half this and not even delivered or presented. So I think there's a happy medium there. I think that if an agent would call, or an agent would even text me and say, "Hey, I'm sending you an offer. Can you text me back when you get my offer via email?" So that introverted Gen Z kind of buyer or agent, that's fine. I don't have a problem dealing with you as long as you're professional. You can still be non-communicative or non-verbal and communicate professionally.
Exactly.
So that being the case, I think,
but make sure for your client's sake that you get an acknowledgement and or a text back or whatever, because I mean, in that scenario you were talking about, they've been sitting on an offer for 2 days that they thought that was presented. Someone else is coming in, you're dealing with them. You don't even know there's another offer in there.
So
it's crazy.
This is where I want the people watching this to understand the difference. So Chris Rooney sits down with a client, fills out his purchase agreement, gets it all filled out, spent a lot of time on it, effort. You spent, crafting the offer so that you think it'll look good so that you can get it accepted. You make sure that offer gets presented every time.
Absolutely.
Right. And then when you deliver an offer to a listing agent, you'll say, "Can I ask, when are you going to be presenting this offer? I'd like to keep my clients in the loop."
Absolutely.
I don't take my foot off of them. I keep my foot right on them. I'm like, I'd stay all the way to the right. I go, okay, you're presenting at 8. Is it fair to give you guys an hour? So I'll expect a call 9:15 from you.
And you're also putting a voice to some ink. You know, the difference of, hey, you know, it's just so, I can't stress the importance of calling the listing agent, not hounding them,
Right.
but, or her, but just to say, hey, just want to see if there is anything that would, you know, that your buyer or seller would be looking for. And it gives me an opportunity to tell them about my buyer. I'm not afraid to talk about all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and Fred, rather than, oh, it's a secret and you'll see it when the email comes over. I say it right away because I want them to know that I'm confident in it.
Right.
And that it's a good offer and I've got good people.
There's
and I want
thought
you to
behind it.
understand.
It's not just, it's just not a bunch of numbers jumbled together and you're guessing.
Right.
I think that, you know, that or the, how do you handle, Chris, you know, because you do a lot of listings too, where the offer is presented with a CMA attached to it. What is your thought on that? I get totally insulted.
I giggle.
Yeah.
I giggle because it's like, you know, we can manipulate CMAs any way we want to manipulate
Of course you
them.
can.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And if they use square footage prices, I just don't even look at them because maybe in new construction, when everything's equal, you know, like, hey, building costs are the same and the land costs and whatever, but it's nothing else is equal. I mean, you can't, what you determined it is, and that's great. Maybe that's what you came up with. That's fantastic. That's no
Right.
problem. You know, but we did this. I had one that we had this. The guy was a former appraiser, and he told me I was absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
You know, that you're never going to get more than this price. And I'm like, you know, I know this area pretty well, and I really think I am because there's not much, and it's competing against new construction. Blah 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 blah. And I got exactly full price for it.
Yeah.
And that person said I wouldn't get 200,000 close to that price.
Right.
200,000. And so it's kind of like, you know, that's fine. I made sure that they knew it afterwards, you know, that what we got for it, but it's a little like, you know, that's making you go after each other. And when you do that, it doesn't end up well because what happens is that if Andy's an idiot to me, that means his client's an idiot in my mind because I'm going to tell that person, well, their agent was kind of a jerk and, you know, he said this and this, and I just want you to know because that's important facts too.
Yeah.
You know, if this person is being an absolute crazy person, I mean, to me, it almost feels like, you know, is it going to be good later on? It's like Jeff sitting at the car staring you down.
Yep.
You know, it turned out, no, he was fine. He was great. But it was kind of like, geez, I mean, how is it going to turn out? So,
Right.
I don't know. Yeah.
No, I think that, you know, that kind of goes into, you know, with offers that get presented or, you know, appraisal gaps. You know, that's kind of a play on that too, where they think that the house won't appraise. And a lot of times, like I say, so, you know, with other agents that are coming in as buyer's agents, I'll say, you know, hey guys, listen, do you honestly think that I'm sitting here wasting my time?
Right.
So you think that my number is a made up number, that I didn't do a CMA, I'm just listing it for whatever my client wanted to list it for, didn't do any research, and I'm investing thousands of dollars into this listing, and I'm just sitting here guessing. I go, answer.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I did a CMA and I can't find a good comp. And I go, my CMA shows 4 good comps. And I said, none of them are on your, you know, maybe you need to revalue, you know, and then you don't want to get into a fight because here's what's happening. So all of a sudden you take a guy like me that has an ego, and all of a sudden we're like combating each other for no reason. I go, you got to save that ammo for when you need it. I mean, because when you get down the road, there's going to be negotiating going back and forth. Why would you start off, like you said, on the bad foot, right? You know, they step on your toe when they're presenting the offer, and then it just gives you every opportunity for that deal to blow up. So I just, it's our job to put on the right act, go in there, present professionally, present it in the light that will get our client that offer accepted, right? And even
you're representing that person,
right?
So you reflect that person that you're representing. You do, because that's the only person that seller's seeing is Andy the nice guy or Andy the jerk. You know?
And you know darn well that if I all of a sudden blow up on somebody and overact, get excited, whatever it is, that rolls back to the clients too. So their buyers will hear, well, geez, that listing agent, boy, he's a handful. Yeah. So I don't overreact. I always just very calmly say, the worst is when I literally have to bite my bottom lip and somebody will come in and say, okay, well, we know that you just reduced the house to 500 from 525. We're going to offer you guys 400.
Yeah.
And I go, I want to say nice things to these people or not nice things. And I bite my lip and I say, fantastic. I'll be presenting that offer right away. I'll let you know how it goes. And is there anything else you'd like me to add? And I don't feed into them at all.
Right.
And then, well, do you think that they'll even consider that? And I'll go, I'm going to present it soon. I'll let you know.
Yeah. What a great way to present an offer.
Yeah.
You're not even going to think about it, are you?
No.
Jeez. Yeah, it is very interesting. That same, you say you get this ego, and and maybe you've done a little business, maybe in a certain area that you've done more business than really any other agent has done over the last 5 years. And then when they start questioning you if you're doing it or not, I had to make a comment.
Yeah.
I said, well, the last 60 of them worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
So I hope I'm right.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Hey, experience trumps. I tell you, a lot of times you have those. I do get it though. I think there's a lot of people that are just representing their client too, where their client might be a total idiot and they're just saying, hey, because they're $1 million buyer, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do whatever they tell me to do. And that's where you don't have any control of your client. And unfortunately for you, you're going to write 25 offers before you get one accepted. And hopefully, your client still will work with you. Because a lot of times what ends up happening too is if you don't have the spine, they blame you. If you don't have a spine, you have to have a spine and say, here's the deal. I'm going to present whatever you ask me to present, but let's look at the facts. Here's the data. Here's the facts. Based on this, do you still want to make that offer? And I'll say, because, and they'll say, why do you think it's too low? And I'll say, what do you think when you look at this information? Well, I think it looks like it's about 50,000 too low. And I go, would you in today's market accept 50,000 under? And, so a lot of times those are direct conversations I'm having. Absolutely. Yeah. So anyway,
the Andy analogies, but those are good. That's how people understand it though. What do you think about escalation clauses?
I don't like them.
Why not?
Because I think they're bull. I think that people that if I tell you in a situation, and I mean this in a nice way, I'm not trying to be, again, I come across aggressive. I'm not aggressive, but I'm saying, like, for an example, there's I go, cool, escalation clause, wonderful. We're also sharing all offers, so I'm gonna let everybody know that your escalation clause will go up to 190. And they go, well, we don't want that. We just want to if somebody else sneaks in there, we want to steal it. I go, right. I know exactly what you're doing. You know what my job is? My job is to get as much as I possibly can for my seller.
You're starting to get a lot of those that you can't, they're putting on that the offer's confidential. It's between us,
I don't know how you'd prove it, but yes, I agree. I think that that's a smart move, because if somebody says that, hey, listen, we're coming in and we'll match anybody's offer up to this and we'll beat it by 5,000. And anything that we go over our current list price, we will guarantee in cash. That's a very attractive offer.
Absolutely.
So what I do then is, for me, like, if they don't have a confidentiality in there, whatever the maximum is, let's say it's, 750,000 as their max. I go out to the other agents and I'll say, listen, I've got an offer in hand, 750 financed. What do you guys want to do?
You will go to them.
Oh, for sure. I do.
If your sellers
I work when I can, when it works to the client's advantage, I will call and I'll say, listen, I have a great offer in place. It has an escalation clause going up to 700 or 750 or whatever the number is. What do you want to do with this? Because my client told me that they would like to see an offer without an escalation clause, but they'd like to be in the same range. Do you guys have anything where you would do this for us? Where I'm doing my job. I mean,
nothing wrong with asking.
No, I'll give you one other quick example of something that's frustrating right now. So there's not very many bank-owned properties out there right now, but I just went through this with a client, and it's still hot in my memory. So we were helping them buy this house. They came in $26,000 cash over the list price, cash, and no inspection, no contingencies, no nothing. Close whenever you want. We put in there, 7 days we'll close. 10 days later, they respond back to our offer and ask us if that's our highest and best offer.
10 days.
10 days later, they took to respond to our offer.
The bank stuff, God, I don't want that to come back again.
Chris,
I hate it.
Chris, we had 4 times they counter offered us, where it's because of their lack of countering faster. They would counter us back with a new closing date. So we'd have to sign everything all over again. And everything, they'd extend it like another 6 days. I'm like, we could have been closed 4 weeks ago. Yeah. And then it comes right
They're
down.
They're not going to be prepared for that again.
Nope. And then they come right back to the purchase agreement. And they go, sorry, we're canceling your purchase agreement.
No way.
Yes. Or they countered us the last time where they wouldn't let us counter back. And so basically we lost out to somebody else came in and offered more than us. Yeah. So the bank was taking offers in and playing games with everybody. Yeah. They were waiting everybody out. They were playing the game with everybody. The real estate agent, local guy that I know, he was not allowed to negotiate the purchase agreements. The purchase agreements were going right to a third party company.
They never are.
And
they become just the middleman. They have to have someone here licensed that's going to sell it for them, and just become a pass-through person.
Well, so in this situation, I'll just give some numbers quick because I didn't give the city. The house was listed at 189. We were in the 210s, 211, 212, whatever
There's
cash.
something listed at 189.
Yes.
Wow.
And here's the thing: the houses in that neighborhood that are fixed up go for about 275, fixed up with new kitchens.
Okay.
So I was like, and this house was a POS. I mean, it was
Yeah. Right.
horrible.
Yeah.
And I mean, needed everything. And so my client was going to go in there, and I go, they're going to be at basically retail. They're not even going to make any money on this house by the time they renovate everything back to what they could buy a place down the street for.
Yeah. Right.
But they wanted that house because of the location, the lot, whatever. And I'm sitting there going, I can't believe that somebody would go. Oh, so when you look at banks and you look at the bank-owned properties and you say, oh, there's opportunities. That was a torturous, horrible experience where they paid, whoever bought that house paid more than what the house was worth. And so, I don't think the foreclosures of today are anywhere near reflecting what the foreclosures were of the early 2000s. I mean, I don't know about you, but that's just my personal spin.
Yeah.
And not all banks are that horrible, but some of them are really good. But
but then they can, because they don't really care. They don't care if it sits there forever.
right.
They really don't. And so it's a very frustrating thing for an agent with your client.
Mhm.
But that's the other thing about being an agent, that you have to set the expectations for that client. And so you're kind of otherwise it's like, well, what are you doing wrong, Andy? Why aren't you getting us this deal done?
Yeah.
How did they just go back on us? I mean, you got to start from the beginning. Okay, it's a bank-owned property.
Yeah.
It's all up for grabs now. We're going to try to be able to move it fast as I can. We'll stay on them and try to keep it going, but
Yep.
you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but I mean, coming back 10 days later is just really annoying.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh, in this kind of a market too, but there isn't many of them out there, to
Nope.
do it. So,
There's not many out there. I think that's the thing, is that we went from having no foreclosures to having a few trickle back in, and they're still about half of what they were.
right.
And what you're going to see, I think, in the near future here, not to get on a whole different topic, but I think that the people that are struggling with debt, that have, big truck payments and big camper payments and big whatever, and they're paying 17, 18% interest on some of that stuff. Now they can refinance their house, pull out the equity that they have in their house, and buy that debt down. So even if the interest rates are a little bit higher now than what they were when they bought the house, but they're still in the 6, range, then they can bring that debt payment down on the other side of the fence. So the house payment goes up, but the debt payment over here goes down, and now you can actually breathe again and you can survive. So God
And
bless America
that
for the equity.
that house payment is based over 30 years. Those other payments are based on
5,
5 years.
6, yeah,
Yeah,
10
so
years on a
the
boat.
monthly you're saving is huge. But I think you got to remember too that, it's like typically people, once they get the lower payments, then they just go buy something else,
Yep.
add something else to the fray.
Yep.
But yeah, so you escalation clauses. I mean, I don't know, because I'll tell you, sometimes I'm like, I always tell people, they ask, hey, are you okay with escalation clause? I said,
Yeah.
you can write whatever you want. I mean, we'll look at it, but to do an escalation clause, you got to be legit. You can't say, hey, it's $1,000 over, and up to 10,000 more, or up to a certain price. It's, to me, it's kind of like, by not doing your best offer and you hinging your bet, kind of,
Yep.
I think you got to pay for it. So I think it's got to be 5,000 over that next offer instead.
Yeah.
But
Worth our while.
yeah. So,
I think that's interesting too. And then the other one, the old, instead of an escalation clause, there's agents that are out there that are pretty smart, and they'll actually use the financing style or type to get their offers higher, knowing that for an example, let's say you have a house listed for 350,000. And your buyer comes in and they're FHA, multiple offers, and you say, let's raise it up to 400,000. And you raise your offer up to 400,000, and FHA will come in and appraise. And a lot of times it'll appraise for what it's worth. So if you've done your homework, it's going to appraise for 350. So now you beat all the other offers because your offer's higher. The agent that maybe has that house listed isn't paying attention, or they're not aware of your client, your sneakiness. And you're coming in there knowing that the appraisal is going to come in at 350. So even though you're up at 400, yep. Or the whatever. I mean, at least it drops down and you can you get all the other people out of the way so that your offer gets accepted. I've seen that. And the only people that are doing it is when they have the FHA financing with it, because they know that that's like a safety net for their client. So anyway, it's kind of interesting, but I tell you, there's a lot of different ways to write offers. There's lots of different ways to get people to look at what, but I think the most important thing, Chris, is this: getting that information on the front end. So when you have a client, right, and you're representing a client, you go to that listing agent and you literally spend the time to ask the questions that matter.
Right.
You know, the big questions,
Yeah.
the closing date, possession, you know, furniture, whatever they
That's
have in
stuff
there.
that we
the
should talk about before we ever look
appliances.
at houses too.
Correct.
You know, so you understand kind of where they're sitting. And then when the time comes, you don't have to revisit that subject. It's kind of like, hey, here's how we're going in. We know our stuff. What's the price? That's
Yep.
pretty much what we need to know.
But how many agents meet their client for the first time in the driveway because they were
Many.
internet lead? Many. And I think that's the problem we have with our industry most. And so I always tell people, I'll say, tell you what, I'll buy you a cup of coffee and I want 1 hour of your time because I want you to tell me everything about you. Tell me about your situation. How do you want to, what are you comfortable with? What kind of strategy? What kind of negotiating style do you have? You know, what do we really want to do here together as a team? Because you're hiring me to go out there and literally kick butt and take names for you.
I totally have a whole packet that I do. And one of the pages, it's actually 2 pages now, are different offer suggestions and how to do them, and then understanding why you would do them and not do them. And it's unbelievable. So I was working with this couple, probably I met them last like March maybe. And then it just kind of got to a point, you know what, we're just going to get married. We're going to do a thing and then we'll start looking again. And anyways, I get a call the other day and they're like, "Hey, Chris, we saw this house. We really want to, I think we want to go for it. And I mean, are you still willing to work with us?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And so I went there and I met them. We showed it. We went through everything. We did decide to be able to write an offer. And I started talking about the different things. And they said, and I hadn't gone over earnest money yet. And they said, "Well, we're thinking about, that we'll do the guaranteed earnest money." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's a great." And he goes, "Well, we went over all that." I'm like, "Oh, that's right." I mean, it was awesome. They were kind of coming up with the ones that they thought were the best ones to be able to add in that they felt good about doing. So,
but you're
good.
Teacher, right? You're teaching them what strategies are working in today's market. Totally. And I think that is what makes you worth more than your commission, is that you're spending the time to help them understand it so they can make decisions that match their personalities and their risk thresholds and their comfort levels. Right. And I think that's super important. And a lot of agents don't, when I met you in the driveway and you say, "You know what, I like it, let's write an offer." And then I call in my offer into my office writes the offer. I don't even write the offer. They email it to you, don't present it to you. And then it gets sent over and by God, you got it accepted. Right. I think that's part of the problem with our industry right now is there's a little bit of that happening out there, a lot of it happening out there. And so, I tell buyers, hire a professional that can walk you through the process. Don't feel like you're getting pinned in, because if you really want to say, like, Chris, if somebody came to you and says, "Chris, I like you, but can I do 5 showings with you? And if I don't like you, can I let you out of your contract? Or would you let me out of my contract?" And what would you say to them?
What would I?
Yeah.
If they didn't like me?
Yeah.
I would say, "No problem."
Right.
I'd say, "See ya."
Right. So you're not married forever. And see, I think that there's a lot of people that are so scared of that. Like the same thing is even I as a listing agent will do that where I'll say, "Listen, I do a 30-day out," or I said, "I'll do you can fire me at any time, but then just cover my expenses." And I go,
every listing.
and I've never, knock on wood, it's just real wood, I've never been fired. I've had listings expire. I've had whatever, but I said, because I let them know what we're going to do. We follow the plan. And if it works like it normally does, everything's fine. Yeah. It's when we get off course, or if they pick the price, or we price too high and now we're chasing the market down. And then you get into these ugly situations where people then start going, "Maybe this agent doesn't know what he's doing." Yeah. Well, what I didn't know what I was doing was I let you list the house too high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
and that's the thing. I think, flipping over to the listing side, but that is so important. I always tell people, I said, I don't want to tell you what I should tell you 90 days later, because by that time, I mean, you're kind of screwed in the marketplace and you're going to lose a lot of money. Yep. So I'm going to choose to do it now. Yeah. And if you don't like that, I understand you might want to go with the other one, but I want a good relationship. It's not enough just for me to make money off of you. It's worse if you talk bad about me later on. Yeah. It's way worse. And it's not worth it to me. And then people look at, "What, really?" And I would rather not do it than to be able to disappoint you, because and I've turned listings away and I've ended up getting them later. Yep. Because I told them the right thing. But I always say too, it's really hard to make a first impression a second time. And so you want to, and especially in situations like that house may have a few different challenges. And so let's just say it's on the lake and it's a steep lot. Yeah. If you price it too high and then all of a sudden later on, the steep lot wasn't really a big deal, but you priced it too high and out of realm of the right buyers that were going to purchase that, all of a sudden now that steep lot becomes, that house is going to fall into the lake. I mean, if we get a lot of rain, I mean, it's on a bluff, it's going to, and it's just like everything turns into craziness. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, that $2 million price now goes down to 1.5.
Yep.
And if we would have been at 1.7, you would have got it,
Yep.
and, and you're fighting from behind. So I think those are,
Well, you position
important
yourself in a position of looking up, right? Like you're saying, like you get knocked down into the hole because you start too high or you do too much.
Yeah.
And you're right. And it's like, but I think there's always that in the back of a client's head is I don't want to leave money on the table. And I
Right.
said, just remember this: in good markets, the market won't let you. And what they mean by that is, or what I mean by that is,
as long as you do the right stuff.
you do the right stuff, the market will go right to the top of the market value because you're presenting it properly. You're presenting it where it feels like it's a fair deal, and fair deals get multiple offers, fair deals get above asking price. And it's, and that's the idea there. So, when an agent's talking about pricing, if they truly present you with all the facts, you look at all the different comparable properties that are for sale, you look at how you guys fit into positioning, that's important too. Who's active right now, who just sold, you have to look at your comps, and then you put together a strategy that's going to work for the client. And I think that's, just like any other project at any other company. You do your research, you execute, you make the plan, everybody does their job, and all of a sudden the project gets done.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
Love it.
Cool.
I was just 1 year old when my family started in real estate, where both my parents were agents. They also dabbled in investing in real estate, rentals, flips, and construction. After college, I went right into getting my license in July of 1990. As a 23-year-old agent in an industry that looks nothing like today, I had to know more for my clients to choose me. There wasn't Zillow or social media to tell them how good I was. I had to win them over with knowledge. With knowledge comes confidence, and with confidence comes results. I found like Travis Kelce, Viva Las Vegas. I mean, what the hell was that? That was the worst.
you do not talk about my hero that way.
Oh, is he your hero? Or is Taylor Swift? I'm not blaming Taylor Swift. I'm not. Everyone else is like all over her, but
For what?
it's not her fault that they're putting her on camera all the time. That she's got it's the NFL and all their little corporate sponsors.
They do not show the cheerleaders as much when she's in the stadium. Conspiracy.
Yeah, I mean, she is a good performer.
I'm sure.
She is a good performer.
Yeah.
I've seen like a video of her performance. She's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
My daughter went and saw her perform at this time, but it was the last time she was in town.
Is she like crazy over her? I mean,
no, but I think there's a lot of really good songs that the kids that are in that age group love, right? And especially young girls.
She does have really good experience with breakups. But I went over those breakups. There's like 17.
Can you imagine how many songs she's going to get out of this?
I know. Exactly.
Because it's going to blow up.
Totally.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Her and Brittany Mahomes probably will get in a cat fight.
Sure.
You see Brittany Mahomes in her swimsuit?
I wasn't allowed to look at stuff like that, Chris.
You don't get that. Okay. Well, she's going to be in. She looks pretty good. Yeah, I got to give her that. But anyways, should we talk about some real estate stuff?
I think so.
I think a big topic.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you know a lot about it because I've got some opinions, but I don't know a ton about it.
Okay.
Is slab on grade homes.
Ooh,
I think that's really coming out. We just did a luxury home, $2 million, which is a slab on grade home.
Wow.
And but the reasonings is that they wanted main level living. Mm-hmm. They opted for an upstairs.
Okay.
But they wanted a massive garage. And so our garage is like within 100 square feet of the whole size of the house as well. And it's kind of incorporated where you have windows going into it. So you can, put, you've had that before where you've had in the garages where, that's almost part of your decor inside. But they wanted kind of a condo garage, but we made it all into a house. But so main level living, obviously handicapped or people that, have some issues with steps, being main floor living. I think another thing main floor living does or slab on grade does is it incorporates the outside with the inside.
Sure.
I think sometimes what you get if you have a walkout basement, you're not really connected to the outside. I think when it's on that same level as your main living area, that you use that a lot more and it expands the house.
I can't agree more. When we look at new houses, a lot of people will walk into the model homes and they say, we want a walkout. And I don't think people really necessarily, and no offense, They don't understand what they're even asking for. They just think that's what they want.
That's
And
what
then
everyone says you have to have.
yeah. And so now to take the dog out in the backyard, you got to go down the stairs, you go out the patio door, or you build a $40,000 deck. And I can build a deck for 10,000
with steps.
With steps.
Yeah.
Right now, you look at most decks, and decks are so expensive. And even if you do them yourself, I think you'd probably spend $15,000 to $20,000 on a deck, and you'd have 100 hours into it or whatever it is. But the idea there is this. So a walkout forces you a lot of times to have a deck off the main level so you can attach yourself to the outdoors lifestyle. The slab on grade, or let's just call it, like the flat lot that actually you can go right into the patio. You're right into the backyard. The dogs are on the same level. It's more attached to the land. I believe the exact same thing you just said. So a couple other advantages of that though, when you look at the construction of it, Chris. So like right now there's also like swouses or barn dominiums, or these, what do they call them, schneds or whatever, shouses, and all these different names they have.
Shed house,
But bottom line is they're building a nice slab, and they're putting up walls on the outside. They're framing everything out on the inside, and they're making a house that is just big, expansive, connected. And a lot of people are at first, I think, and it'll take a little bit, but they're struggling with what do you mean this is a $500,000 barn with living quarters in it, and it's becoming a reality. And a lot of people really enjoy that, because think about like what you just said, the enthusiast that likes their snowmobiling, their four-wheeling, their sports cars, they pull into the big garage side of the I'll call them barn dominium for now, because that's
easiest,
the barn dominiums. And they come in there and they can actually interact. They can plug and play. I mean, they walk in right from the kitchen. They're out in their garage. The garage is heated just like the rest of the house. It's kind of a cool setup. It really pulls it all together. Some people say I don't want to live in a tin building. So what they've done is now you're starting to see a lot of these pole barns are not just pole. They're actually becoming just that style of a home. And I think you'll start seeing custom builders starting to do this now too, where they're bringing in and actually, really accessorizing this concept. What I'm also seeing with that single level, I think a lot of us think of mom and dad. Like mom and dad need to get on one level,
right?
And they don't want the maintenance. And so we have the detached, slab on grade townhouses. We have the attached slab on grades. You have a variety. You still have a yard. You still have a place for the dog. You're not in an apartment or a condo or a co-op. It still provides independence, yet even though everything's being taken care of for you. So I think there's a wonderful, and then the newest that I've started to see, Chris, is when we're trying to tackle affordability in new construction. Okay. There's a ton of restrictions. There's a ton of fees. There's all these things that come into play. And so what happens is these let's say there's a beautiful farm, all high and dry land, and they can get 100,000 an acre, let's say, just for even numbers. Mm-hmm. And now you go down the road and there's low land that's lower, and it doesn't have enough soil on there to actually do all the walkouts. That land sells for about 30,000 an acre. Okay. Now they come in there and they build a development that's designed to be slab on grade, where they don't have to have the deep basements. They don't need the walkouts. They don't need all that.
So you save money that way too.
Thousands of dollars. You probably save $60,000 a pad sometimes in some cases, where just not having to deal with all of the, and I'm not even saying smaller lots.
And still import, export.
Correct.
If you want to try to, create a walkout on a flat lot that's acreage, you can get stuff out of there or bring it in.
Yeah.
To be able to create it. But what I think is that people don't use that darn basement. They don't. I'm going to ask you a question. When did you build your house?
My house is about 20 years old.
20 years old. Have you finished the basement yet?
Just actually starting to do it now.
Are you doing it?
Yeah, with my daughter coming home. Yeah.
Oh, you're kidding. Okay. Cause I was,
I don't need
you
the
never
space.
did. I know you never used it. So you used it kind of more as a storage standpoint.
And you should explain to people though, too, I have an office above my garage.
Yeah. You have plenty of space, but that's my point. I mean, you can do a slab on grade and then do an upstairs as well. Mm-hmm. Like the people that we're doing it for, that's what they chose.
That's probably
they just didn't want that basement because you really don't use it.
Well, so the old there might be a storm, or the thoughts that you need something, a safe room or whatever you want to call it. So up in Alexandria, we're looking at building a place on a lot that we bought.
Yep.
there's a ton of houses being built slab, or they have a 4-foot crawl space just for utilities to hide everything downstairs, a little warmer floor. Then you have a wood floor versus concrete.
Well, you got a water table there too.
Yeah, yep. You're on the lake, and the lake lots are very level, so they're not. You really don't need to go very deep, But anyway, so they're doing that. But what both styles of homes are doing now is even the flat slab lots in the middle of the house, they're doing like ICF rooms that are like the insulated,
Right.
foam. And what they're doing is they're building a storm room with a steel door that's actually works as a pantry or as a mud room. And then that is their storm room on the main level. So then you have that security.
There you go.
So now you take off like a basement, for example, on a home like that's probably close to $40,000 you'd save on a house by not having that basement that you're never going to use.
Yeah.
Some people like to use it for storage. I get it. But the idea there is today we're trying to talk pro slab on grade. And I think beyond just lake lots, Chris, what I was going to get to with the new construction was, and I kind of was going all the way around the block, but they can build smaller lots. They can usually get more density because we don't have to worry about so much topography. Beyond that, what they're doing is, if you can imagine those days where we had the townhouse, the side-by-side townhouses, imagine slicing one in half, and you'll see a garage door, and you're going to see the front door right next to it. And then there's nice bedrooms up above. And the houses, at first I thought, boy, they look like, a house that's not completed, or it just looks like something's missing. And now I've kind of gotten used to them. They've become an interesting product because you still get the nice big 2-car, or even sometimes they can do a 3-car on a lot. They have the front door goes in, you have all the living behind the garage. So you have your kitchen, you have sometimes an office, you have your family room, dining area, utility room, and then you go up and they 4 bedrooms and a loft.
Yeah.
And it's perfect. And so you might not use a bedroom as a bedroom, but you might use that as an office, or you might use that as a theater or a gaming room or something. A lot of people love gaming.
Well, how much is that product?
They start around 400-ish.
Oh, really?
High 390s in the cities.
But that's getting a smaller lot. I mean,
it is, but you know what it's doing is it's kind of doing what Orrin Thompson did back in the 40s and the 50s. It's making young families have a place to buy and own their own home and build equity, and it's a different housing product that we're not used to yet. And so all the Hey guys, Andy Prasky with RE/MAX and the Preferred Home Team. If your house didn't sell before the listing expired, you probably are feeling a little frustrated, and I understand. It's a hard spot to be in. Let me run down a few options for you. When your house hasn't sold, you can take it off the market completely, sell it yourself, or work with an agent to relist it. If this is a bit overwhelming, here's what I'll tell you. There's probably a reason you wanted to move, so deciding you're not going to move isn't really putting your needs first. And while you can try to sell it yourself, it's an involved process, and if you're already stressed because it didn't sell the first time, taking on the pressure of selling it on your own may be more than you want to tackle. Option 3 is to relist it. Now, I know you didn't have a great experience, and I want to change that. I'm here to listen and offer advice. Let's connect so that you can have a partner who can help you make a plan to help you make your next real estate move. Call me Andy P. I'd love to help you on your real estate journey today. Builders, there's very few of them that are getting into it, but it's actually a way to build a $400,000 new house for a young person. And you know what they do? They get excited, absolutely fall in love with it, and want that house. I mean, that's their favorite.
And they justify no basement. And I'm telling you what, after you've lived in them for a while, I mean, I live in a house and it's a pretty big house, and I go from my bedroom to that living room to the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I never go downstairs. Actually, I don't go upstairs either, but it's kind of silly, I mean, but it was there. I had to kind of use it, but I mean, just going and finishing that lower level. I mean, we're not even talking about that part. You're just talking about saving how much concrete, and doing frost footings versus a full basement. Adding windows. I mean, you can spend a heck of a lot more than 40 grand.
Sure.
In just that portion, but then it's finishing it all off. So I think that, but a lot of times if you're trying to get a bigger house, do you have enough land in which to be able to spread that house out on too? So there's the positives and the negatives. And Minnesota, I mean, that wasn't kind of a big thing. I mean, obviously in Florida and Texas and Arizona, it's rare that you get a basement.
Right.
And here, with the winter and stuff like that, it's just more apparent. So
yeah, no, and I think that there's, Chris, you bring up some interesting points, too, with city lots. Like a lot of times people will say, hey, well, I want to save 40,000 on your new construction house, and they have a lookout lot or they have a whatever. Now, a lot of those costs that you save have to be spent on bringing soil in to correct what you're taking away.
Totally.
So, it's kind of a start to finish formula that will actually save that kind of money. It's not just an individual, I don't want a basement, I save 40,000. There's houses that I've built where, it's only a $15,000 savings not putting in the basement, and having just the slab, because the city sometimes, instead of, a floating slab, they might have to put in actual footings, and they still have to do the drain tile, and they still have to do the radon mitigation, and they still have to do everything else. So you're really only saving a couple courses a block. So you might only save 15,000. It really depends on the city.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know, but I'm interested to see how this new stuff takes off.
And it's truly an option. And I think that it used to be like, I mean, from a single family perspective, not an association maintained townhouse kind of slab feel, that I don't think I know it's not looked bad upon anymore.
Yeah.
It's looked at like, oh my God, that's a lifestyle.
Yep.
Versus like, I'll never be able to sell this damn thing. I mean, why would I ever buy it?
Well,
It used to be like that.
It totally was. I had a beautiful 2-story on acreage, and the acreage, the guy got a really good deal on the lot because the water table was high. And so he built a slab on grade 2-story and beautiful 2-story, big accessory buildings, the whole thing. And this was back when like a really nice house would sell for 600,000, right?
Yeah.
And so we priced this thing at the mid 500s, and we're like, this thing's gonna pop. It's gonna, and I did a quick little, in the MLS, we can actually do a search, and we can actually see like back, and the absorption rate of houses that are slab on grade. It said it was going to take 18 months to sell that house. And I was like, I warned the seller. I said, listen, I mean, we're going to sign a 1-year contract, but I said, at the end of the 1 year, we might have to extend this again based on the stats right here. Well, we sold it in about 6 months, but it still took us 6 months to sell it. The right buyer had to come in. They came in from Texas.
Justify. Yep.
Yep.
And they knew what it was like.
They knew what it was like, and they loved it, and they were used to it. So that's what they have down there. So
didn't see it as a negative. But yeah, so slab on grades is definitely an option that's out there. It's happening more and more, even in the luxury part of it. So,
the one last, I think, tip I'd give Chris is, I know we were kind of wrapping that up, but the other thing is, if you are doing a slab on grade style home, to make yourself more accessible to more people, wider doorways, wider hallways. Think of somebody that's on wheels that has to spin around in a circle, and make that space so it's adaptable for that lifestyle and those kind of situations. And then all of a sudden your house becomes so much more attractive to so many more people.
And it's just a lot. It's easier. I mean, when you have main floor living, like I have that, I can stay on that main floor. I think it's just so much better as you get older, and you try to get off the couch and then kind of slip over to your bedroom.
Yep.
Versus climbing up those stairs in which to do it. I've ruined a lot of couches because I never wanted to go back upstairs. But
right.
Yeah.
Hey,
good stuff.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah. So, well, good. That was good. I think that's something that a lot of people worry about, that it's not going to be able to pay back. And dealing with these people we were doing on our other luxury thing, it was like, you know what? It's who we are. It's what we want. And that was important to them, and sometimes that it overshadows. And I'm seeing that a lot more now, where lifestyle and convenience and what I want overshadows. Hey, if it's a couple 100,000 and I lose a couple 100,000 because of it, doesn't matter. I want it.
I've had to have this conversation with many clients. I go, okay, so this is supposed to be your forever house, right? And if it's true and you stay here as long as you're on this earth, and I go, but you're comfortable, everything is easier, everything is awesome. And I go, and then when your kids go to sell this house, let's say they lose $100,000, they sell that house for 100,000 less than what you think they should sell it for. Do you honestly care? They're still inheriting a house, and they're still inheriting. And I go, so you want to live uncomfortably for the next how many years for $100,000? I go, so
it's what I did for years.
Yeah.
I lived for what I thought someone else wanted to live in it.
Right.
It's just like, that's so stupid.
And then they buy the house and want to remodel it anyway or something. It's like that is so, that's the reality that you come to once you live in a house. If you're just like, if you've ever looked at those investments where you basically buy the hotels, they'll sell like a room, and you pay $500,000, and then every 10 years they make you, or 5 years they make you renovate the room, new furniture, new floors, new whatever. In single family housing stock, you have to update that probably every 10 years. So if you've lived in a house for 30 years and you haven't changed a damn thing in that house, good for you in the sense that you haven't spent any money, but now it's going to cost you
Yeah.
because now you have to update everything or you have to sell it at a discount. So why not live in a house, constantly keep updating it, keeping current, staying kind of in style so you're not completely left behind. And that's the thing is that, I don't know, it's just some advice.
Probably the best advice is get a nice lot. If you get a nice lot, you can overcome a lot of problems. That is for sure. So awesome.
Good.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Real Estate Radio Hour. Don't forget to visit our website, realestateradiohour.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast listening app. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes or sharing us with a friend. Until next time, stay awesome, Twin Cities.